So in assignment 1, you're to draw a sphere. When I read the assignment closely, I see that it doesn't specifically say that you should have a spherical object in front of you and that you ought to be drawing from that, though I do think that it's a very good idea and I would highly recommend it. Other matters, you're asked to use a variety of graphite pencils. Well, I would say that when I draw, I seldom use more than 3 pencils. I find that that's enough to juggle. So, you are welcome to try different ways of working with the artist's materials after you've sampled the recommended method. I want to encourage you to find a system that works well for you, one that you can manage. Another matter is the instructions are saying put your darkest darks down and then blend toward light from there. But in my experience, it often works better if you refrain from putting down the darkest darks until you know exactly where they ought to go. And I think you'll see a quote in week 3 somewhere from Jeff Prentice that's along the same lines. Neither of us would advise committing to your blackest blacks until you're rather sure of exactly where they need to go. So it takes some time to develop the image until you see what goes where. So hello, Caitlin. I can see you are in my camp. You're a person who likes to have something in front of you when you draw. And I'm thinking you must have had a hard time finding a sphere. I'm going to go back and take a look at what you say in the discussion. The top of this jar does have some of the quality of a sphere. But, if you think about it, a sphere shouldn't be too hard to find. For instance, an orange is a sphere, or a ping pong ball is a sphere. I want to applaud you on your shading here. It looks very subtle. I also want to encourage you to use a light source that's obvious, and I want you to pay special attention to the shadow and squint when you're judging how dark it ought to be. The shadow here is looking a little as though it was made up. There are some areas that seem unusually dark. For instance, all the way around the bottom of the jar is dark. And I think it would be dark in some areas, but not others. Of course, I can't be 100% sure. Your photography needs improvement, and I would recommend that until you get a camera, you make your drawings the size they can be scanned and scan them. Joanna, this is a lovely presentation with the way the ball and the shadow fit onto the page, and also your value scale looks nice too. A subtle job of shading. It appears to me that you must have done some smudging or blending. Really quite a lovely drawing for this particular assignment. Anthony, this is a strong drawing. If I were to give you any advice, it might be to look for some of the middle values. I see dark values and light values, but not a gradual transition. And that goes for your value scale too. I'd like to see the value scale go from blackest black to palest gray. Hello, Heidi. There's some nice subtle shadowing going on within the middle part of this ball. I'd like to talk about the left side edge, however, which I feel is awfully dark and stands out a bit like an outline. Please work to let your edges be only as dark as the shape of shadow that they bound. Now, I'm thinking about the cast shadow next, and this is not exactly the shape I would expect to see. And that suggests to me that perhaps you weren't working from a still life. I think if you do work from this still life with a ball there in front of you, if it's dramatically lit, you'll have a better idea of how this shadow ought to look. With the horizon line, I might use a straight edge, and then I'd judge whether the area above or below the horizon line should be darker, and I'd add value accordingly. Hi Deborah, what a lovely drawing. Very gentle. I like this soft quality to the lower left edge. On the lower right, I think there's some of the same sort of thing going on that I was talking about with Heidi there to do with her left side. That edge is standing out like a line, which is something that you'd probably rather not have. Now, I want to talk to you about your cast shadow. I think that it should be more horizontal, if you follow me. I'd like you to be aware of the fact that a cast shadow can help establish the ground plane and make it seem flat. So the way that the shadow is falling, it's suggesting that this ball might be sitting on a sloping surface, which I don't think would have been the case. Well, hello, Samantha. I think you've been exceedingly daring to leave the left side of your ball quite white so that it blends in with the background. A thought about that, generally if the ball is light on one side to the point of being the white of the paper, the background can have some value added to it, and that creates the other edge of the ball, if you will. As I was saying to a couple of people, I think you will get a better idea of how to draw a shadow if you actually regard a ball in front of you. And it's important to squint at that shadow to judge the value accurately. Notice that the outer edges of a cast shadow are generally very soft. Well, hello, Jennifer V. You know, every artist has a different sort of touch with the medium, and yours is very soft. It reminds me just a little bit of that of Mirandy. You may recall that at the end of week 2, I posted a picture or two of his in announcements. One thing that I've done in the past when drawing a ball or a sphere is to use either a compass or some sort of circular template to get the drawing going. It seems as though this sphere is not exactly geometric. Now, it's possible that you did something like take your kneaded eraser and make it into a sphere, in which case it probably wouldn't be perfect. So if you were drawing a ball made of kneaded eraser, it may be a little wobbly and irregular. Jennifer W., this is a very fine drawing. I really like the suggestion of highlight there, the way that it very gradually blends into the lit area and then into the shadowed area. Like Samantha, you've been rather bold in letting one edge just seem to disappear into the background. I'd like you to listen to what I had to say to her about applying some value to the background. Like some of the other drawings I see here, the cast shadow is not convincing me that this was drawn from life or drawn carefully from life. So I'd like you to be very astute and a bit of a stickler when it comes to working with cast shadows for future.